Welcome to the next episode of Power Players. My name is Amy Gregory, founder of Powerhouse, brokered by eXp Realty. Today we have Kelley Armstrong with us from Billings, Montana. And if you don't follow Kelley, you're going to love following Kelley. I feel like you're a good yin to my yang.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, right? Don't you think? So, okay, Kelley, tell everyone a little bit about you. How long have you been licensed? Where you're located? All those things.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Kelley Armstrong. I'm in Billings, Montana. I've been a real estate broker since 2013, and I've been in the business since 2011. So we are coming up on over 10 years in the business.
That's like a big milestone.
It is, yeah. It's honestly, you blink, and here we are.
Okay, but the statistic is that how many agents quit within the first, is it the first year or the first 5 years?
First
the first
2
2
years.
years,
Mm-hmm.
there's a statistic.
Yep.
You're going to remember the statistic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to remember like the big picture on it. This is the yin to the yang right here, which is actually what makes this so fun. Is it they quit within the first 2 years?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
So why do you think so many agents quit so quickly? Because you've been in a decade, which is a huge milestone.
Yes, I think honestly, with agents, it's so important to determine who you want to surround yourself with and really like partner with people who are where you want to be. And I think that sometimes agents really don't think about that in the very beginning and actually like interview from that aspect of it versus like, oh, okay, who has the better split or who has, this training or, whatever. But actually think about it like long term, where you want to be in 5 years and what kind of business you want to have, because we're going to outperform that statistic, and really think about it from that lens. So like people first, business second.
100%. The other thing I think too is I think we see a lot of people get into real estate thinking like, oh, this is easy money, or like when the market's high, they're like, oh, I'm going to go sell a couple of houses. And so I also think there's like two different types of agents.
Totally.
They're the agents that are in for like a quick win, and then there's agents in that are like playing the long haul game. And I think you and I would both agree that real estate is more of like a marathon.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a fun marathon.
Yeah.
But there's going to be like peaks and valleys in the market. There's going to be peaks and valleys in your career.
Yeah.
Of like kind of always having to pivot. So one of the things you said is interview. You basically were saying like interview with like the long term,
from a long game perspective,
right? And so, what are some of the things that you think like if looking back? I know you had a great experience with your first broker.
Yeah, I felt
right?
very lucky.
Yeah.
I started in the business as an assistant, and so I actually kind of got to see the behind the scenes while I was still in college. I knew this is what I wanted to do, but I wanted to learn. So that's actually some of my best advice that I've ever given to people wanting to get in the business is go be an assistant for somebody and go learn the back end of things, because that's really where a lot of time is spent training. So if you already have that ready to go, when you have that, when you get your license, now you're into the fun stuff. You're into the sales. You're into the relationship building. Because you already have that foundation built. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, no, I think with agents getting into the business today, there's not enough long game mentality. It's very much like, oh, I'm in it for like a quick commission. I can sell a house real fast. It's going to be great. When really the long game is where your big wins are going to be found.
Like, well, fun. I mean, listen, they can always say, well, anyone can go sell a house.
Yeah.
And that is true, right? Like, you can go get.
I mean, I don't know.
I guess,
You
exactly.
do.
Yeah, you do you, boo.
Yeah.
But you say like, okay, great, I'm going to get in when the market's high. I mean, we're just coming.
Yeah.
We're still in a pretty high market,
Yeah.
but we're coming off a breakneck speed high market where it seemed like everyone was getting their license, and you definitely can pick up some quick short-term wins that way, 100%. But like the statistic is that real estate is the number one way to build generational wealth.
Totally.
Generational wealth. And so you're thinking, I'm always like baffled by that short-term perspective. So what are some things that you're doing like inside your business to like source long-term wins? Because you don't always have to put down the short-term win.
No,
sometimes you do, but oftentimes you can get a short-term win and a long-term win.
You have to have the short-term wins.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, like that.
You got to close transactions.
You have to, but not even on the closed transaction side. Like, I mean, it's even cultivating a lead. Like that's a short-term win. You know what I mean? Like that. Like you have to track.
I just skipped like 5 steps.
No, totally.
Right?
Like
again, this is the yin to the yang.
It's a sale. Like your sale is getting somebody to take the next step. It's not necessarily closing the house, but like the more that you can brick by brick build those sales or build those quick wins, that's what's going to get you the long-term growth. Yeah. So yes, focus. I don't want to say focus on the short-term wins, but if you think of short-term wins as just getting somebody to take the next action, then that's where you're going to see that foundation built, where you're actually going to start moving and grooving.
100%. So what are your favorite like lead sources? Like what are your favorite ways to like capture a lead? There's a million ways you can do it.
Yeah.
And that's probably the fun part of real estate is you kind of get, it's like choose your own adventure to some degree.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite? You tell me yours and then I'll tell you mine.
You know, God, I don't even know if I can put a favorite on. So 10 years in the business, there's a lot of ebb and flow. So what I was doing in the beginning isn't necessarily what I'm doing now to cultivate leads. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like parts of
you want to have some growth though in your business, right?
And you change as a human, and so your business changes as a human too. So I mean, kind of cultivating that way. When I first started, I was really heavily involved in our community. I was, you know, I was coaching at a fitness center. I was going to chamber meetings. I was like really like putting myself out there and establishing that like, hey, I'm the real estate professional. And doing that in a way that showcases, hey, we are your educated advisor.
Okay, so time out. I want to rewind 10 years ago. You're like going to the chamber meetings. You're like, I'm giggling because I think of myself 10 years ago. So it's like, did you feel confident walking into that room?
Oh my God, no.
Yeah, like I think like
no.
I would have died.
It was hard.
I would have felt like I'm like, I'm going to put on this blazer and pretend like I'm smart and walk into this chamber meeting.
So
but you kind of have to.
Going back to aligning yourself with people that you want like similar businesses to, right? So I was so fortunate to be able to have a mentor in this like fabulous woman. I mean, total boss, right? And she's dressed to the nines all the time. Like I don't think her partner did not wear a suit or tie every single day. Like that's just like they are like head to toe.
Which has got to be, now listen, I work at like Phoenix, Scottsdale, Mesa. So like you see people like, I mean, Scottsdale is bougie, right?
Billings, Montana is not necessarily as bougie.
You're like in a suit and tie, I'm like, can I not wear cowboy boots?
It's so true. And I'm not saying that like this is everything, but they have a standard and they have a level of service that is known in our community. And so I see
it's actually brilliant marketing.
No, I mean, but that's them. That's who they are. Like that's who they are as people. They're not just playing an act. Like that's who she is as a human, is just this really elegant, beautiful person. And so I saw that and I was like, okay. I was like, this is how a professional looks. So I had the pencil skirts, I had the blazer, so I walked into these meetings looking the part and look good, play good. I mean, let's be real. I was brand new baby agent. Okay, walking into these chamber meetings trying to prove myself and get a client. Okay, so I mean it's a little scrappy, but I also think that it goes back to aligning yourself with people that you want to have similar businesses to, and they ran a very successful business, and so that was the first step that I had, and then being in real estate conversations. Like we don't say that enough as far as you learn something. I personally learn while I do. So if I can get in more conversations and if I can get in more rooms with people, then I can learn to have those conversations. I can see what they're talking about. I can go back and study. I can, do whatever I want. But it's being in the environment where you actually are like, okay, like be, do, have type mentality. So
Love that. Love that. So your initial lead source was Chamber of Commerce meetings.
I only got one client from Chamber of Commerce, but it was just being a part of the community. And being out there like, okay, hey, in my gym area, I then became the go-to realtor. So that was a very like generous lead source was, hey, okay, we're going to call Kelley because, we all sweat together. Like, I mean, we all suffer together. So like this is who I want on my team.
Well, but those shared experiences, I think people don't realize. A lot of people miss that. Like when you share those like experiences, there's some vulnerability there, and it really like knits you together, and it builds that community in a way. And actually because my favorite lead source was, of course, was Instagram.
Of course.
But it's really similar. Like your guys are sweating it out together and it builds that, like there's some vulnerability there. Right. And the same was true for me on Instagram. Like we love to find patterns and things. So it really is very similar. It's just like a different medium. Right. And so I started more social media and then came more into real life, and you did the opposite of like in real life coming more into social media, but you use both of them. Like they kind of ping pong, right? Like whoever you are on Instagram or whatever platform you're on, you dang well better be that same person in real life.
Absolutely.
Like,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. Yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Social media wasn't what it is now in the business.
Yeah, 10 years ago, it
when
really
I
was
started,
not a thing.
It wasn't, it was a place to, I remember, I think my first Instagram photo was like a naked palette that I had, the eye makeup, you know what I mean? And I was and it had the grainy filter.
A totally different direction with that, like,
no.
wow, Kel.
No. Urban Decay.
This is PG. There could be kids watching. No, but don't you remember you'd put the filters on that had like the black edge and it would make it look like it like burned around the edges?
Yeah, that was my first Instagram. That's what I was doing as a real estate agent with Instagram. Okay, so
I feel like we've already gone back to like MySpace.
Actually, wouldn't that be the greatest flex if Tom called you to buy a house? Like, let's be real. That would be the greatest flex ever.
100%. But yeah, it's like no one's realizing that that's what Instagram is going to turn into.
Yeah.
I think if you had been dabbling on Facebook and stuff, you could see the trajectory of Instagram. But we're seeing, okay, let's talk about this a little bit. Let's unpack this a little bit because Instagram is starting to mature.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. Yeah.
And so people that are paying attention, I mean,
moving on over to TikTok.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like so
Yes.
Right? And so you start to see these patterns inside business. I love patterns in business, and I know you love patterns in business, but we build them a little bit differently.
Totally, everybody can.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like, well, you could also listen to a podcast or read a book and gain something totally different than I would. And so when people come into this business and they're like, I want to build like so and so, I want to build like so, like heck yes, have them be your inspo, but also do yourself the justice to be able to look inside yourself and figure out how you want to build your own business too. And use that as inspiration. One of my favorite things to do is look at different businesses and look inside of them and take the process, take the meat, leave the bones type thing, and figure out how I can apply that to my own, my own business. Yeah. And but then that creates something totally different than it initially was. So
100%.
Just
or even like taking things from other industries that you're like, that's looking really good in this industry. What does it look like inside real estate?
Yeah, that's actually it's really funny you say that. Probably one of the most questions that I am asked is like, what real estate podcast are you listening to? Who's your favorite real estate podcast? I can honestly tell you, I don't think I subscribe to any real estate podcast. Like I listen to business podcasts. Yeah. And I take their main concepts and I put that real estate into my own business.
Okay, well, I take that back. I used to listen to real estate podcasts like before I started.
Totally. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I would like listen and listen and listen.
I felt like junk afterwards.
I did too. It was not a good vibe.
No, it made me feel like I'm like, oh my God, I'm not doing it. That Super Agents Live, I used to listen to that. And yes. And he would interview all these people. And one, like, no offense, if this goes big places, sorry, but like he's not very nice. Like he's not like super fun to like he's very like
gruff,
very, and it just like the people that he was interviewing, anyway, we don't have to go there.
Yeah, it did not feel good to me.
It didn't vibe with me.
And what I always thought was really interesting was, and listen, I started in real estate like 6 years ago, and I obviously used Instagram, but I would listen to these podcasts, and they would be like, oh, social media is such a waste of time. Social media is such a waste of time. But I had a different perspective on it because I had used it in other business endeavors, and I was like,
just giggling.
Have you seen the fashion blogger business model? Because it's the bomb. No. Like, it is the bomb. And I'm thinking to myself, listen, my girlfriends that are fashion bloggers are killing it. Like, killing it. Just quietly, and no one quite realizes it, right? And the other thing I noticed on all the podcasts is, well, you would have two extremes. Yeah. You would either have one where it was like super regimented. Yes. All you do is this, follow the plan. This is the plan. Don't deviate from the plan. Or on the other hand, it was like, well, I'm doing this and it's hitting all these numbers, and everything was like all over the place. Yeah. And so what I kind of learned is like, okay, all these are like valid ideas. They're all building like successful businesses. I'm going to pick the ones that work for me. Totally. And go and build my business. Yes. And even though everyone's like, oh, social media is the worst, I'm like, bet I'm doubling down on that. You know what I mean?
Like watch
this.
Watch this.
Work pros. Right? No, but that's the thing of like, anyways, it just was interesting. And I think real estate, though, can feel kind of lonely and icky sometimes, like if you're not in the right rooms. Don't you think? Yes. I've been in some rooms where I'm like, where is the exit? Like, I gotta get out of here.
Like, it's crazy how much social media has opened up the ability to share and connect with people, and that just was not a thing. Like, I have really great agent friends. Like,
Yes.
I feel very fortunate to have a really core, incredible group of agent friends in my market, and we would share with each other, but it's nothing like what is available to us now.
Okay, let's touch into this a little bit, because a lot of times I think, like, you were at a local brokerage, I was at a local brokerage. I was thrilled.
Yeah, I was comfortable.
I was happy as
very
a
comfortable.
clam. I mean, I had no complaints.
Yep.
Right?
Very
but when
comfortable.
when you start hitting certain metrics in your business, and you're like, okay, well, what's the next step?
Yeah.
You know, I had heard about EXP. I have this rule. Do you have a rule of 3 in your business? Have I told you about my rule of 3?
Lately, it's like rule of 6.
Oh, really?
Like, well, just because it keeps coming and
Because it keeps
coming and coming and coming. Yeah, but
I love it.
If
But
that's
you
where
know
you're
my
going,
rule
yeah.
of 3, right?
Yeah,
Where
okay.
it's like, if I hear about something 3 different times
Sure.
from 3 different sources that aren't connected, right? Like, they can't be 2 of the same friend group people, right? And so I'd heard about EXP, and I was like, okay, I'd heard about it from 3 different avenues. I thought, okay, that's something I need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
It's just a stupid rule I have. I don't know. Whatever. Kelly's got rule of 6.
Well, but it just
apparently
seems like,
Kelly needs to get hit with a
no,
sledgehammer.
literally, I had to get hit over the head and be like, listen.
Yeah. So that's when I started looking into it, and I was like, oh, wait. This might not work for everyone, but it's going to work really great for an agent like me, who's building the pockets of my day using social media and kind of interested in more of a non-traditional, like, approach to building a business.
Yeah.
I would say it feels more traditional now, but 3-4 years ago it didn't as much.
Yeah.
And when we look at, like, the traditional brick and mortar brokerage, yes, you want to share and collaborate because that's naturally who we are.
Totally.
But also from a business perspective, if I'm in a brick and mortar and, you know,
it doesn't make sense.
Jessica next door to me right here, who lives in my neighborhood, we're not financially aligned.
It doesn't make sense.
I can't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, as
It's
much
not
as
in your
I
best
care
interest.
about Jessica or Sally or Susie or whoever, I care about my family more, and I got to protect my business.
Yeah.
And I think women sometimes struggle with that.
Totally.
Is that a fair
Yeah,
statement?
I think that's very fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. No, it brings up a really good point that there isn't a perfect brokerage.
No.
Right?
Gosh,
and
no.
and I think it just goes back to knowing who you are and knowing what you stand for. And maybe you don't know who you are in real estate just yet.
Yeah.
But do yourself a favor and look at everything through a clear lens and see how can I apply this to what I want to do. Yeah,
and basically, most women get into real estate. It might be their first career, but sometimes it's their second or third, or they're coming in after having kids or whatever. And it's like, look at it through the lens of what you already know. Yeah. Like, they already know a lot of times, right?
True.
Like,
It's
there's
true.
agents that have come in like, oh, I worked at an ad agency, or, oh, I did this. I'm like, oh, okay, let's take that perspective and look at this, right?
Yes.
Because that becomes the reality, and it builds a phenomenal business.
It's so true.
Right?
And one that they are already feeling authentically aligned in.
Totally, because it feels natural to them.
Yes.
It's like, I literally, you just like glowed. Your face is like authentically aligned.
Where's my halo?
Where's my halo? Okay, so what did you see? I think EXP was a hard decision for you because you were really happy with where you were at.
I was very comfortable.
Yeah.
But I am also I'm somebody that, again, once you see something, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, yeah, this is great, but what if it could turn into this? And I truly think that there should be, I truly think that taking some sort of like steps in your business into kind of those polls are what creates like the really great results.
Yes.
And that was what EXP was for me, was a poll. And it was definitely, it took me time. I wouldn't say that it was a hard decision. It was,
but this
it
is
took
who
me
you
a while.
are. You're measured in your decisions. Like I'm much more like gut feeling. I'm going, I'm jumping, and I'm building the parachute on the way down.
Yeah.
And you're much more measured, which is what I love picking Kelly's brain about something, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump. And sometimes I need people to say, do not jump. I'm calling
Amy,
Kelly.
Close your tabs.
Okay, it's true. I'm infamous. Oh my gosh, for having a million tabs open. It's true. And Kelly probably has like one single tab. And I might have 30 sticky notes, and she's like, I have one, and it's in a planner.
Color-coded.
Oh, shoot. It is color-coded. I can't even think that's color-coded. But I think you're just like, more measured, and before you do something,
Yeah.
you're going to know, if you haven't already built the parachute, you at least know how you're going to build the parachute, which I think is super valuable to have, like, to be in rooms where you have opposing,
Totally.
not even opposing,
but like opposite
differing
sides of the fence in that
yes,
way. No,
like, and how
I
you
totally
make
agree.
and how you approach, because like sometimes Kelley needs to come my way and sometimes I need to come Kelley's
Totally.
way inside our own
100%.
businesses, and it's nice to have both those perspectives.
Well, and honestly, you being able to jump so quickly and me kind of taking like, okay, let's look at this at all angles.
Yeah.
Like I kind of joke that because when I want to do something, I am relentlessly.
Oh,
like
yeah,
I
there's
pursue
no
it
stopping you.
relentlessly. But
100%.
I also exhaust all options before I decide to do, like, okay,
Yes.
what does this look like? But I think one of the things that I have gotten from you is the ability to be like, okay, that feels good, move, go.
Yeah.
And that has brought me some incredible things in my business. So I'm very
that's
thankful.
like something you practice, don't you think? And it's kind of almost like learning to trust your gut.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yes.
Because
it's so true.
And I just think that takes practice of like, okay, great, this feels good, I'm going to go. But even knowing I'm going to jump and it might not be right, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so you get comfortable with both sides of the coin.
So, and one thing that was really great was, and that I appreciated so much from you, is your knowledge of EXP, because that, to me, that's kind of like a love language of like, okay,
it
knowledge.
Totally is.
Like honestly, like knowledge builds confidence. And
Yeah.
so like you are confident in this model. I'm like, okay, she's so confident in this model, because in my area, it wasn't necessarily something that was, it wasn't
super attractive or
it
well
wasn't.
known.
Yeah, it wasn't. And so I literally, when I made the switch, I had so many phone calls, and they were like, "What are you doing?"
What are you
I'm
doing?
like, "Just wait.
Yeah.
I promise. Just wait.
I promise. Just watch this."
just. And now it's finally, a year later, it's finally coming back around and be like, "Oh, I get it."
That's part of being an early adopter.
Yeah.
Right? And so
Early
a lot of
adopters
times
get
in
rewarded.
business, you want to be an early adopter, but that also means then you're a little bit vulnerable and people don't get it.
Totally.
Right? And so you're like,
yes.
wait, I feel like I'm getting this. Or why aren't you getting this?
Yes.
And the magic is in the fact that they don't get it yet.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And learning to trust.
Like,
that.
what a circle, too. Like, okay, learning to trust yourself, moving, other people not getting it. You still really have to trust yourself and be like, wait a minute, did I do the right thing?
Yes.
And then it becomes full circle, and that confidence level only goes up. So imagine how much quicker you are at being able to make those decisions that really affect your life when you take one risk.
100%. 100%. And also being confident in your ability to undo it if it doesn't work out. And
So
you're like,
true.
oh, I know, I've figured out hard things before. I'll figure that out.
Yes.
And I don't need to like overanalyze
Yes.
to like, it's like analysis paralysis.
It's so true.
100%. Okay, so tell me a little bit before we wrap up, like what's on the horizon for you?
Yes. Agent education has been a passion of mine ever since I got into the business. So we're really leaning into that this year. I hired on a new team member to help take off some of my stuff off my plate.
Yep.
And she's phenomenal.
Okay, can we just talk about that?
Yeah.
When you hire someone, the whole point is to create space for new opportunities, and we see agents constantly running on empty. Please stop doing that.
Yes.
Stop doing that. Hire someone.
Hire your people. Hire your people. Hire your people. Hire your people.
Hire your people. Hire your people. Okay, let's break down how you do that really quick, and then we're going to wrap up so that you have something like put in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Number one, I would say know your hourly rate.
Okay.
Like you got to know your hourly rate. So you say, okay, my hourly rate is X. So that means if I can hire Joe over here to do it for less than X.
Yeah,
Joe is getting the job, right? We're hiring someone. It doesn't have to be Joe, because Joe might not be a good fit. Yeah. So then how do you find the hire? How do you find a good fit?
So on it, like this could be a topic in itself.
Yes.
My whole entire team is virtual.
Yep.
They are all virtual. They are all in different areas of the state, some even in other parts of the world.
Love it.
And they... Man, referral, honestly, like the service provider community is tight. Like
it goes back to relationships.
Tight.
It goes back to relationships.
Yes.
Yep,
we can link some actually in the show notes or whatever we call it. I'll link a directory to where they can go.
How many times have I texted you for that directory? 1,000?
I literally
137. It could literally be 137 times. I mean, 1,000.
But honestly, it's such a great resource, and like I'm a fan of hiring people who are really good in their craft. And so I think about it almost like a little transformer. So I call her my internet wizard, but Rebecca, she came on as an ads manager, and she is just morphed into this like beast of she's not even an assistant. She's like I don't function without her, So and then the other two that we have too are just so phenomenal at what they do. So really being able to hire those people, let them do their thing, and then we come together and create really this beautiful business. So I'll link that. But but that's a great place to start.
That's
is
a
the
great
directory.
place to start. Is the directory that we'll
Yes.
link up in the show
Yeah.
notes. But hire the people, because when you hire people, that frees you up for time for
Yeah.
new opportunities.
Yeah, totally.
Right? And if
Yes.
you don't ever hire people, then it's like you're always going to go to first grade.
Yeah.
Like your business can't grow.
Yeah.
Because you haven't made
You'll
the
grow a
hires.
little bit organically, but like imagine
You're
like
gonna
what
grow
you
right
could
to
do.
burnout.
Yeah,
is what
exactly.
You're gonna do.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're gonna grow.
You're not
and
gonna
then
be
you're
able
gonna
to
want to die.
sustain.
Yeah, because it's just too much.
That's so true.
Okay, Kelley, thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
joining
much.
us. If you don't follow Kelley, make sure you give Kelley a follow. She is one of my partners at Powerhouse inside of EXP. And this has been like, I always say this is like the surprise of my life, that we get to like do all of these things together with so many phenomenal agents inside our business. Be sure to like and subscribe, as we'll be dropping new content every single week.